Hello everyone, it's Jim. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming back and watching my videos. Hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Today I want to talk about screwing up a photo completely and then finding a way to fix it. And really for me, it's all about experimentation and sort of what some people call stick-to-itiveness. So just the ability to stick to it and go back sometimes again and again until you get it right. So I'm going to talk about a photo that I frankly was really screwed up. And honestly, I came this close to doing this video about that photo and just saying, hey, sometimes things don't work out. But then I thought more about it and I was like, that's not really me. That's not really my self-appointed job of trying to help share things, tips, tricks, and things to do. In Luminar, my self-appointed job is to show you how to do those things, not to give up and say, shit, sometimes it doesn't work. So the truth is, sometimes it doesn't work, but it's also important, I think, to stick to it and go back and say, you know what, damn it, I'm going to get in there and figure it out and make it work. And that's what I did. So let me show you this photo. Here we go. So this is the Duomo and the Campanile, and then this is Piazza de Signora or something. I can't remember, but anyway, Florence, Italy, Firenze in Italian. A gorgeous view from up above the town, and there's a plaza. I think it's called Piazzale Michelangelo. It's a great view up above. You got the river there and the city and the distant hills and, of course, the gorgeous church. And as you can see, the sunset was crap. There was nothing there. And what can you do about it? Well, you can change the sky, which I'm going to do in this video. I'm also going to make some adjustments to the lights, the color, some of the detail. I use a preset. I mask in some things. I do a lot of stuff, so I hope you have fun. And let's get going. Let me show you what I turned the photo into. I turned it into that. Now, that's a much more colorful, richer looking version. I made it look more nighttime-ish. I guess this is the word. Let me show you the before and the after. Changing out that sky really helped. But let me show you the ugliest crap version that I had. Here it comes. Just avert your eye. I'm almost afraid to, embarrassed, if you will, to show it. But here we go. Ouch. You can just say ouch. It's okay. I put in this new sky and I was cranking up the details, and it's a single exposure and I made it look HDR. I brushed in some stuff in that center of the photo with all, bringing up the structure and the buildings. And you know what? I ran into some problems. Let me show you the problems. This is where I admit my mistakes. If you look right there, that's all blown out. I mean, it just looks terrible. So I didn't even notice that. And then over here where I put in the new sky, you see I have this line all along the hill. And usually what you do, and I'll show you how I did it, you change the blend mode, you make a duplicate layer and then change the blend mode and blend it together. And it usually, if you have the right kind of sky, which I did in this original, let me show you again, perfect sky for a replacement because it's pretty blown out and everything else is kind of dark. So when you have that, it doesn't have to be a straight line, but when you have that perfect contrast between the horizon and the sky, it's usually ideal. But as you can see in this photo, it didn't blend well, and I even changing the blend mode and experimenting, doing all kinds of stuff. I couldn't get it to work. And so let me get back to normal size there. The photo just looked terrible in that version. So I sat on it for a few days. I really thought I was going to say, hey, I'm just going to do the video and just explain that sometimes you can't get done what you want to get done. And while that's true, I said, you know what, Jim, that's bullshit, that's cowardly or whatever. Go find a way to make it work. So this is my final. And as you can see, it's a different sky completely. And I think that was part of the issue, was the way this other sky was lit and the color contrast. I think it was just too much. It wasn't smooth enough, for lack of a better word. So I changed to a different sky. And as you can see, I also dialed back some of the processing. There's my original version, which was a mess, very HDR looking. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with it. I do these things plenty of times. There's nothing wrong with it. But when I came back to it after a couple of days and I looked at it, I was like, oh God, it's kind of hideous, Jim. Like I was going to share that. Like I was proud of it. And now that I look at it, I think, ugh. And look here, by the way, not blown out around the campanile or the bell tower. So let's get into the photo and get into Luminar. So first thing I did is say, I got to do something with the sky. So what I did is I went in here and I added a new layer. And the first thing I do is I convert it to black and white. So I'm just going to turn on these filters as I walk through it. Otherwise, we'll be here for like a month. And what you do here is you basically just drag the contrast all the way to the right, the highlights and whites all the way to the right, and then the blacks and the shadows all the way to the left. And all I'm trying to do is just create a really blown out sky. And then I go to the curves tool and, oh, you know what? I didn't turn on this layer. That's why. I was like, why is that not black and white? See, like I think I know Luminar and I script simple stuff. So let me turn the layer on. Now, let's see here. Let's get this filter on. Okay, so I'm blowing out that stuff, and then I go and I do curves as well. And basically, all I've done is just create a totally white sky. So let me turn off this layer, and there's the before sky, and here's the after sky. Now, the reason the rest of the photo isn't black and white is because I also applied this with a luminosity mask. And so I just went here and clicked on luminosity. Now, I'm not going to click it again because I don't want to recreate it. So let me hit brush and let me hit the mask, and you can see it's a little bit rough in a couple of spots, you know, where it looks like trees or something on the hills are sticking up. But creating that luminosity mask after you do these other things gives you the ability, because all I did is created a really bright sky and everything else is pretty dark. So the luminosity mask applies to that bright area. Boom. That's all I want to do is create a luminosity mask. So I did, and I'm done. And this is where I add a new sky. And by the way, I have an entire video about this sky replacement technique. I'll put a link. I can never remember which corner it is, but it's one of them there corners. So look up there and click through if you want to watch it. It's a very popular video. Check that out. But anyway, I went and added a new layer, and then I also copied and pasted the mask. So when I added the new layer, I went in and said, hey, let me turn on this guy. Boom, it applied the mask that I created, which was a luminosity mask just in the sky. It stuck the sky onto that mask, and that's what it does. I also did another thing, which is I did free transform. So once the sky was in place, I squinched it up there. Otherwise, it would have covered the entire photo, and just to show you that's what the sky would look like, right? I don't want that. I wanted some of that awesome orange and pinks and stuff like that. So I brought it to where those things are higher in the sky, and they covered all these areas really nicely. I just think that looks a lot better. So that's the beauty and the utility or usefulness of the free transform tool. It's great for moving new skies around once you've applied them. And that looks a whole lot better than if I just left it without doing the transform, because it would have just been a little bit of the stuff at the top covering the entire sky, which was kind of boring anyway. So that's where we are now. So what I wanted to do next is clean up some of these areas. Let me show you, right? So you can see these were the things I showed you in the mask a couple of minutes ago where it's kind of a little rough around there. And so the way to do that is you just duplicate your layer. So just create duplicate layer, and then you come over here, and let me turn this on. What I did is, if you can look here, my blend mode is darken instead of normal. Whoops, let me go back to darken. All I did is apply that, make a duplicate layer. I think my computer's hanging up. And change the blend mode to darken, and it does a great job. And then I just came in and, hello, 1 second while I wait for this thing to fix. Okay, so then changing the blend mode allows that to come together a bit more smoothly, which to me, it just looks a lot better. So is it ideal and perfect in every single way? No, but if you look at it, it's a whole lot smoother along those edges, and that's what I was trying to get to. I'm trying to get rid of a lot of those little crunchy bits, I guess, for lack of a better word. So I've got a new sky, and I've done all the things I've done so far in the video. We're really just getting the sky on the photo and making it look right. So the next thing to do is to go do what I consider light and color fixes. So I'm going to turn on this layer. The first thing I did is stick the tone filter on, and as you can see here, I bumped up smart tone and a little bit of contrast, just trying to bring the scene to life. To me, especially the strip in the center, which is sort of the cityscape in front of the cathedral, but on the other side of the river, it was just too dark. So I brought that up. And then here I used adjustable gradient to also make some changes. And as you can see in the top, I added some vibrance and warmth. Let me show you the orientation. Okay, I thought I moved it. I didn't. I can't remember. It's been a couple of days since I built the photo. I left the orientation where it is, but as you can see for the top, I bumped up vibrance and warmth. And the bottom, I added a little increase to exposure and contrast, tiny bit warmth, but really nothing of consequence. So far in this layer, I've done tone and adjustable gradient. And then I come over here to HSL. And in this case, if you look at hue and if you look at luminance, I didn't do anything. But if you look at saturation, I basically took the blue down by -60. And what I did is, let me show you where I painted this. It was across the center of the photo, right in there, right? So that's where I painted the blue reduction. Let me hit that and hit done. And let me show you, let me turn that off. If you look in that section, it's too blue, like the roofs, not the roofs, but like the sides of the buildings in the cityscape there in the center, they're pretty blue and they should be kind of white or more tan. And the mountains were a little bit too blue as well. So that's what I did by using the HSL, just took the blue saturation down and painted it into that center of the photo, simply to take that down and make it look a bit more natural. So we're getting pretty close. So this is where I looked at it and said, what does it need? Well, I don't know. It just needs a little something. So what I did is I went and just grabbed a preset. And this little code for me is to tell me what preset I use. So let me go show you. I went to my Wanderlust and I used Blue Hour Madness. So Wanderlust is a preset pack I sell on my blog. If you're curious, there's a link down below. It sells for, I don't know, $5 or $7. I can't remember, but it's got a bunch of presets in it. So I selected that, and the one I use, whoops, close, is Blue Hour Madness. But instead of, it'll default to 100%. It'll look like that. And so if you're scanning presets and looking for inspiration, just keep in mind that you might want to reduce the opacity, because at 100, I wouldn't want to use that. That's super saturated. That's clown vomit, as you've heard me say before. But what I wanted was just a little kick. So I think I went 35 here. If I can get to 35, there we go. And I think 35 looks good. It gives it a nice little color punch without going over the top like, oh my God, Jim, let's take it easy on the color. I'm not going to bore you with all the filters here because there's quite a few of them, but that's a preset and it worked pretty well for me. And then the last thing I did is I got to my final layer. Let me turn that on. And this is just what I called finishing touches. So this is where I sit with the photo and just kind of scratch my head and say, what else do I want to do? What would make this photo really come to life? So I often will try Accent AI because it's so powerful. So let me turn that on. And you can see, there you go. It brightened the photo a little bit, not a lot, mostly in the darker areas, which is what AI is great at doing. And then on top of that, I use tone. And so again, a little smart tone here, but I brought down the highlights, which actually helped me a little bit with that building there. So that was kind of a little bit of a help. And I added a little bit of contrast. Next was saturation and vibrance. So I simply took the saturation down by 10 across the entire photo. I was just a little nervous that I was getting a little too saturated. And as much as I love my colors, I don't want people to look at it and kind of be like, wow, that's colorful, but damn, what are you doing? I want people to say, wow, that just looks like a gorgeous photo. So I often find that I err on the side of a little too much color and saturation. So another benefit of sitting on a photo for a little while is to come back and say, all right, I want to tone that down a little bit, especially when you're putting in a really colorful sky. You want to make sure you don't overdo it. It was already kind of night. It was past sunset with the blown out sky, but the sun wasn't in the frame. So I think it works to add a sunset sky here. And by the way, sorry, I'm hitting the mic. Some of the things I'm doing, like the use of the preset, some of these finishing touches, and some of the light and color fixes I did a couple layers ago, those are designed, and I do this every time I add a new sky, and that is I'll use presets and filters to make sure that I'm kind of blending the photo together, because there's nothing worse than a sunset sky and then a cityscape that looks like it's the middle of the night, or a sunset sky over a landscape that was shot in the middle of the day and the brightness values in the landscape itself are just too bright, and it's obviously sunny and warm out, but then your sunset's darker and moodier. So I always want to try to blend them together. You could be the judge as to whether I did it or not in this final photo. I think I did a pretty good job, but that's personal preference. it's just something to think about. So I recommend keeping that top of mind when you are replacing a sky. So the next thing I did is get saturation and vibrance again. First, I took it down by 10 across the whole photo. And then in this case, I came and I took it down by 30, but I just painted it into the foreground here. So let me show you that. I'll click on the brush and then I'll click on that. And you can see all I did is I reduced it by 30 because simply stated, there's too much saturation in that building and those trees. And admittedly, I don't really give a crap about that building and those trees because they're not what I'm looking at. I think you're immediately drawn to the cathedral with that dome and then the sky and sort of the cityscape. And if your eye wanders to the building in the foreground, you know, I'm assuming you're going to pass over it pretty quickly, but like my eye just goes straight to the cathedral. It's obviously the focal point of the photo. So I wanted to reduce any visual distraction in the foreground by taking down the saturation. And then I did a little bit more of that by doing the same thing here where I took the exposure value down in the bottom by 60. And this is where I moved the orientation. So it defaults to the center of the photo, but I dragged it all the way down to the bottom because I just wanted to reduce the light value in that small section of foreground that covers that building and the trees. Again, don't want the visual distraction. It's kind of like using a vignette to draw your eye, but it's not a vignette because it's not the whole photo. It's just that little section at the bottom. And that's an idea. I did this in a video a long time ago. You could use adjustable gradient on either side, on the top and the bottom as well, just to create your own sort of custom vignette or to create a really dark exterior, like if you're trying to create a different mood or something. But I'll often do just one of those, like on the bottom or maybe in the sky to create some mood, but you could do it on, you know, anywhere in the photo. So okay, so that's adjustable gradient. Then I've got HSL, and I don't think I did anything with hue or luminance. Nope, here is just reduce orange saturation by 25. Let me turn it off again. And if you look at the orange and the yellows, it's mostly this bell tower over here that's coming down, but it's just a little too orange. So I wanted to take that down a little bit. And I did that just globally because a little bit of the yellows here were a little too vibrant as well. And again, I want them to look realistic. I want them to be visible. There is, you know, street lights across that side of the river that are shining up on the building, so they are going to be lit. You are going to see the color. I just don't want that color to overwhelm. I'm more interested in seeing the cathedral and with the new sky, what I consider a beautiful sky over that, you know, historic site. Last few things. These are my last finishing touches. Orton effect. Just there's the before, and then here's going to be the after. And I just wanted to add a little bit of moody romance to the image. This is Italy, it's a country of love or whatever, I don't know. So I went with the little Orton effect, and then on top of that I added image radiance as well. And I'll often use those both. They do a little bit different things, but they both add some of that romantic glow, kind of that mood. And I like the impact that they had on the photo. And then, last thing I did is just with the tone filter, I just added Smart Tone, but I painted it into that center section. So let me get the brush and show you the mask. There you go. All I did is drag Smart Tone 70, which is a pretty high amount. You can see I painted it into the rooftops there in the middle of the cityscape. I just wanted to brighten it a little bit. Let me show you the before. For me, it had just become a little too dark, some of which was because of the previous two filters, Image Radiance and Orton Effect. And so I just came in there and just said, I want to brighten that a little bit. I want people to see those rooftops. I like all the shapes and the height variances and stuff. And it kind of, to me, it sort of makes a shape where it sort of curves around the cathedral. And it stops kind of where the, you know, the bell tower is over on the left. Anyway, I just wanted to brighten it a little bit. And that's it, my friends. That is the final photo. So let me show you the before. There it is. And after. Now, I did a lot of different things, but they were all kind of small tweaks. And even using the preset, only used it at 35, small tweak. But in this case, blown out sky, no color whatsoever. Too dark in the center, really dark in the bottom, a little too dark, even though I don't want you to focus on that foreground, it's a little too dark. And so what we did is just rearrange the light, brought up the color, put in a new sky, and went from kind of 0 to hero. And I don't know how many minutes this is, but it's probably too many. So that's it, my friends. I hope that this was helpful. And my point was, I wanted to show you the horribly ugly, crappy job I did the first time. and talk to you about sticking with things and getting back in there, get in there and fight or whatever. Find a way to make the image be the way you want it to be, because Luminar has the power to do it. You just have to be willing to experiment and try things and learn things and just keep going at it until you get what you want. Because it, in just about, I'm not going to say every case, because someone's going to say, well, but in Photoshop. So, okay, not every case, but in many cases, you can get anything you need in Luminar and get it done. And I hope this was a good example of that. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Share with your friends. What else? Hit the like button. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And I'll be back as soon as I can with another video. Have a great day, my friends. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time. And adios.